This is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Gaia Thrift in downtown Danville, Illinois, homeland of Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. And I'm doing something I've not done before, and I'm using my phone to do this broadcast. And this is a little bit of a trial and error because I, again, have not done this before. One of the things that means is I cannot see the chat room, although I'm sure there must be a way to see it, but I haven't found it yet. But as you can type your questions or comments onto whatever platform you're watching on. They will appear in the chat room, but today, unfortunately, I can't see them. So hello to everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. And today, our stated subject is the Prince of Swords. And we're going to talk about that subject. And also you'll notice that today I'm dressed in gold, which is the color of the solar chakra. And as with yesterday, when we were talking about the Princess of Swords and the sacral chakra, the Prince of Swords and the solar chakra have a certain tie between them. The solar chakra is about self-image and relationships and place in the world. The Prince of Swords is about, I'm going to call it self-care. When I first started reading tarot cards, I usually encountered the Prince of Swords described as selfishness, as taking advantage of situations, as being aggressive, etc. And this is part of what I was talking about yesterday also with the planet Mars. How Mars is really the planet of passion and action, but it also is often seen as aggression, which I think is more of a comment on the viewer than on the energy. And I think that's true also for the Prince of Swords. What I found for myself as a reader is that when the Prince of Swords came up for me, it more commonly meant not that the person in question was totally self-motivated and acting selfishly, but exactly the opposite. That they needed to cultivate a little healthy selfishness, a little ego, because they were giving the farm away. It is a card to me that says, take care of yourself, take care of your own needs, because otherwise they're not going to be met. And in talking about leadership, which of course we've been talking about for a while, this is also a very important point. We talk a great deal about what we do for our organizations, for our community. We don't necessarily talk so much in this series about what we do for ourselves. And one of the reasons is that many people who are in a position of leadership in the pagan community don't do much of anything for themselves. They're totally into their mission, they're totally into their organization, they're totally into the people that they are serving, and don't necessarily take care of their own needs. And that has certainly been true on occasion for me and many other people in positions of leadership that I have known. So my message to you today is that if you're in a position of leadership, or you are hoping to be in a position of leadership, whether we're talking about just in your own life, or in an organization or community, remember that you also have to take care of yourself. Because, if you're constantly doing all of the things the organization needs, but not taking care of your own needs, particularly your health needs and so forth, you may find yourself without the energy to continue going. And that is a loss for all sides. You want to make sure that you get enough of what you need so that you remain strong, so that you can remain focused, so you can do the work that you've set yourself to do. And because many people in the pagan community, and I think in the world at large, are in positions of leadership out of a desire to serve their organization, their tradition, their community, the fact that they also need to take care of themselves is very often on the back burner. And we see this in community organizers who burn out, who come to the point they just can't do one more thing because they forgot to take care of their own energy. And while this might not be the first thing that I would emphasize in a discussion of leadership, it is one of the more important things. You want to make sure that you don't leave yourself short while dealing with all of these other needs. It's very easy to do because when you're leading an organization or when you're in um, a position within a community, it is always going to have a long list of needs. And the truth is, you'll never be done with that work. You can work 24/7 and never get it all done. So you have to make sure that you carve out places for yourself at the same time. I personally was never particularly good at that. I'm hoping to be a little better at it in the future. People used to ask me, "What do you do for fun?" And the answer was, "Well, I worked." The things that I was doing in my position of leadership was what I did for fun. There really was not much else. And that wasn't necessarily a healthy way of going about it. It was an effective way in many cases, but it wasn't necessarily a healthy way. And one of the things that came to my attention in the last year is how little attention I had given to the things that gave me pleasure in life, other than fulfilling that role. And when you're going to be in a position where you're giving your time, you're giving your energy, you're giving your life for a particular organization or community, or even just in living your daily life, you want to make sure that you're also taking time for yourself and that there are things separate from what you're doing that help you to replenish your own energy, help you to enjoy your life in other ways. And, there's nothing wrong at all. In fact, it's highly desirable to enjoy what you're doing, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And, speaking for myself, and I think quite a few other people in similar positions, very often it becomes the only thing. It is who we are. And I think for the next generation, it's going to be very important that you also pay more attention to your private life than many of the last generation of leadership did. And this brings us back to our card of the day, the Prince of Swords. And the Prince of Swords, as I normally read it, is make sure you get what you need from the situation. Other things will get what they need, and they will take care of that. But make sure you're getting what you need and don't cut yourself short. And when we look at the solar chakra, it's all about self-image and relationships. And that same warning applies there. When you look at your relationships, whether they're personal relationships, business relationships, etc., make sure you're getting what you need from them. And no one can really do that but you. Even if the other people are trying to get for you what you need, they're not you and they can't really do it. You must take care of yourself. Now, for some people, this will be a difficult message to understand. Many people are raised to immerse themselves in whatever their work or passion happens to be and not really think about life otherwise, not really think about having that aspect of private life along with the public life. But, in recent years, the idea of work-life balance has been a major issue in society. And I think that for us in the pagan community, we need to bear that in mind also, particularly those in positions of leadership. It is very easy to find yourself dealing with the needs of your community or your organization more or less 24 hours a day, more or less 7 days a week, particularly if it's a large organization, because they will always be there. But you need to take more time for yourself too. And this is not an aspect of selfishness, but rather of self-care, because if you let your energy run out, you won't be able to do anything for anyone. You will find yourself simply exhausted. And I think that any of us who have been in this community for any length of time should not have too much trouble thinking of different community leaders who did exactly that, met exactly that fate. They ran themselves till they could run no more, and then just basically kind of withdrew into the shadows. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. Um, I've seen that with lots of local leaders, for example. And how do you avoid that? How do you not stress yourself to the point that you just can't do anymore? And the answer is, while you're doing your work, you have to take some time for yourself. You have to consider where you're at. And, I can tell you, there will always be people saying, but this must be done now. We need your attention right now. We can't let this wait 24 hours. That sort of thing. And sometimes that's entirely true. And something must be dealt with right now, but quite often you can slow things down. Um, Quite often, you can take that evening to go do what gives you pleasure, what allows you to de-stress. And as always, I'm talking about our pagan community, our pagan organizations, but this is true for any organization. Um, it's like I've been talking about the Witch Wars Defense Manual, and the fact that it's not only applicable to witch wars, it's applicable to any conflict you might find yourself dealing with, and very much to the cultural wars that our society has been in for some decades now. Just because we're looking at it from a pagan perspective does not mean that's all there is. And no matter where you're putting your energy, make sure you're keeping some for yourself. Make sure that you are looking at what recharges your batteries. Now, some of that in our community is likely to be metaphysical in character. Doing your meditation, doing your energy work, may be exactly the one thing you need to keep that energy high. You might not need a lot of other things, or you might. Um, but it's very easy, and I think this also does contribute to that history of witch wars that our community unfortunately has, that a lot of those people were so involved and so overwrought emotionally in what they were doing that they could not regulate um, their emotions. And that, I think, is also one of the things that leads to witch wars and confrontation. If you can keep yourself in a nice, peaceful state by taking that time for yourself, by making sure your energy is recharged, you'll make better decisions and you'll have better relationships. Now, as I say, I'm not necessarily one who has a lot of room to talk about this. But on the other hand, sometimes having lived through it and looking back on it does give you room to talk. I was always a person who was very focused on what I was doing in my role in my organization and my community, far more than in what we might term a personal life. And in retrospect, I do not recommend that. I recommend making a little bit more of a balance. And that basically is my message for you today. And we certainly will talk a little bit more about it, but summing it up in one quick little phrase, that's it. Now, we're at about halfway through our program. We want to hear from our sponsor. Um, and this will be a bit of an experiment because I've not done this in quite this way previously. Because, it all looks different on the phone versus the computer. And scrolling down to the sponsor. Here we go. And there we go. We want to thank Equinox Learning Hub for their sponsorship. And, well, here we are. There we go. So, as I was saying, it's very easy when you care about what you're doing to get completely obsessed with it, to be completely focused on it. And it's not entirely a bad thing. That's part of that grinding that I talk about frequently as being a key element of being successful. But you don't want to do it to the point that you discount yourself and your own needs. So, um, to me, the message of the Knight of Swords is that you must also take care of yourself. It's wonderful to be dedicated to taking care of other people, to be taking care of organizations, etc., but not to the exclusion of yourself. And again, for that next generation of leadership, that is a message I hope that they will pay more attention to perhaps than my generation did. Now, it's also worth saying that some of that depends on the situation in which you find yourself. And my generation of leadership um, had an awful lot to do. And of course, that was different for different people in different positions. But in a lot of cases, it required that total focus. But as we have built up our structures, as we have built up our forms, hopefully for the next generation, that level of sacrifice will not be equally necessary. I do believe that on those occasions when it's necessary, it is necessary. Sometimes things must have your full attention constantly. But again, you want to make sure that you're taking the time you need to remain strong and coherent. Um, you cannot, you can only go so long without sleep, for example. Eventually, you must sleep. If you don't, bad things will happen. And this is kind of that same principle. You can dedicate yourself indefinitely and work um, constantly, but also run yourself down, run down your energy, and that's the thing you don't want to do. So, building up your own energy, making sure you're enjoying your life, and making sure that you have um, full access to your own skills, that you're not so tired, that you're not fully on board with everything you're doing. These are all important points. And, there are some people who can completely devote themselves and not run down as much. Uh, but I think for everyone, this is still an important message. And for the people watching, I hope that regardless of whether you're just leading your life or you're leading an organization, that you will remember that you must also take care of yourself as well as the things that you've taken responsibility for. And it's very rare that that anything is so all-consuming that you can't do that. However, some people's personalities make it difficult to deal with all of these things. And in that case, my message would be work on it. Find things that give you pleasure. Find things that help you to relax and rejuvenate yourself. Even if it isn't your nature to do so, develop it, and I think you'll be happier for it. These are some of the things that I would say in connection with our subjects for today. Now, I want to take a moment, and tomorrow, our guest will be Chris Copeland. We'll be talking about the latest things from Corellian Publishing. And, some of those things include Rev Don's book of stones, metals, and crystals, which is a rather encyclopedic book of stones, metals, and crystals, talking about their history and their contemporary metaphysical use. Witch Wars Defense Manual, Volume 2, How to Win, which is an excellent source for all this kind of thing I'm talking about, and a very valuable tool for anyone who wants to be in a position of leadership or who just needs to understand the ways in which conflict can be most constructively handled. Now, there are people who will say, well, can't you just avoid conflict altogether? And that's not been my experience, even when you try. It's good to understand what's happening, and particularly to understand that certain things, which may appear to simply be behaviors, are actually strategies. And realizing that, for me, many years ago, was a very enlightening thing. And it does tie into our subject today, in the sense that it is important when you're in a position of leadership, and to some extent, any position you might be in, to remember that the people that you are having relationships with, in some cases, are going to be enacting strategies to get their way. We all know people who do that, people who have never been or desired to be in any kind of position of leadership already know people who behave that way. And it's good to understand, to know what certain behaviors are that are intended to produce a political result. And one of the ones I commonly refer to is when the less well-known person attacks the well-known person in the desire of raising their image to appear to be at an equal standing. And if you misunderstand that, when such a thing happens, you might actually think that this person is trying to bring up issues that they would like to resolve, when in fact, they're playing a political game. Understanding that they're doing that is helpful in knowing how to respond in a positive and productive way. And in the end, that really is the name of the game. How to act and how to respond in positive and productive ways. What will help the goals that you have? What will help you and your organization in positive ways to achieve your goals? And what will hold you back? What will deter you? What will trip you up? And unfortunately, there are many things that can do that if you're not paying attention. And so part of the message of the Prince of Swords or the Knight of Swords, in addition to make sure you get what you need, is make sure your eyes are open. to the behaviors you may be seeing. Some of them will simply be people interacting, but others may be quite cold-blooded strategies to try to get you to do certain things. And when that happens, it's good to understand, A, what they're expecting, and B, how not to do that. As a general rule, the unexpected is always the best strategy. And I tend to be a great fan of the unexpected. With that, I see we're coming down to the end of our half hour, and I'm going to run our second sponsor for the day. And our second sponsor is me. And therefore, I definitely want to include myself. And here we go.
Ready to unlock the secrets of the universe? Join me, Rev Don Lewis, for my metaphysical and magic auctions at Gaia Thrift at whatnot.com. Discover fascinating artifacts, mystical crystals, and rare and unusual books that could change your life. Don't miss this chance to bring a little magic into your world. Rev Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, where the extraordinary can become yours.
And we're back. My next metaphysical and magic auction will be Friday the 13th. That's this Friday at 7 p.m. Central at whatnot.com. And watch my Facebook page and other platforms for more. We'll have some very interesting metaphysical items here. I'm actually kind of surrounded by them at the moment. And one of the things I'm thinking is focusing personally more on metaphysical subjects, more in terms of the auctions, and particularly as we come into October. And I am probably going to be doing things like seances, and of course I'll be offering readings. So if you're interested in any of those things, stay tuned. And one thing I had not anticipated is broadcasting live from Gaia Thrift. There are train tracks right next door. Well, not next door, but close. So if you hear the train, it's a train. Danville was once a major railway hub. And at that time, it was a significant city. Of course, it's not that now. But there's still a lot of trains. And compared to some other central Illinois communities, Danville is holding its own. And with that, I see we've come to the end of our half hour, and let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we ask you to be with us, to guide us, and to help us, to make certain that we get the things we need from life, to make certain that while we may choose to serve others and to serve our community, that we also help ourselves and take proper care of ourselves, so that all may prosper. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, and knowing you are always with us, from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. I thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always, and I'll see you tomorrow. And